Well, good evening. I'm not sure if I should have been the first speaker of the evening, but I'm honored to be the first speaker, and especially honored to be here on a Palestine United evening. I know many of you because this part of the country is where ICAHD, the Israeli Committee Against House Demolition USA headquarters is. And so not only do I know you, but many of the local people with ICAHD have worked with the Arab community, the Palestinian community here for many years. And so I feel not really a guest, I kind of feel a part of the community as much as I can. So I want to thank you for inviting me. And it's a special honor for me to be the warm-up act for Ali, because Ali's a good friend of mine for many years. I think his voice is one of the most important voices in terms of introducing a very critical analysis of the situation that really helps us to clarify exactly where we are and where we're going, and I think brings up very important questions. I just have a couple minutes, and I want to leave time for Ali and for the other people. I want to say, I guess, two things, because it was mentioned tonight that tonight's a night to celebrate. And I think there really are reasons to celebrate. First of all, I travel all over the world trying to bring up the message of a just peace everywhere that I can. And I want to tell you that I think, we've always said that we'll begin to make progress on this issue, on the conflict, when the issue of Palestine begins to assume the proportions of the anti-apartheid struggle in South Africa. And I think we've reached that. I think the issue of Palestine is one of the 2 or 3 major issues in the entire world. Last year, I was in Seoul, South Korea. In South Korea, I wish it could be in this country as well, April 19th is called Students' Day. It's the day, I can't remember if it was 1987 or 89, in which the students rose up against the military government of South Korea and joined by trade unions overthrew the government. And since then, there's been a civilian government in South Korea. And they call it's like the July 4th, except in South Korea it's called Students' Day. Can you imagine something like that in this country? That would be wonderful. And so every April 19th, they have a huge rally in the central square of Seoul. And when I was there last year, the rally was dedicated to Palestine. 50,000 people, mainly young people, poured out into the streets at night. There was dancing. One of the I have it on my computers actually. One of the top hip-hop groups in South Korea on this huge screen played their music. Some important politicians came out. In other words, if the issue of Palestine can bring 50,000 young South Koreans out into the street, you can imagine what's happening in the rest of the world, in Latin America, in Africa. And I think the Palestinians, it's not only their struggle, but I think the Palestinians have become kind of the, how would I say it, sort of the symbol of oppressed people all over the world that are trying to resist oppression, occupation, neo-colonialism, neo-imperialism, humiliation. In other words, I talk sometimes about global Palestine, because I think the struggle of the Palestinians, and it's not only against Israeli occupation. It's clear that Israel couldn't maintain the occupation for a month without the support of the United States, in particular, and in maybe a lesser way also of Europe. So that the occupation is seen as an American European-Israeli occupation. And from that point of view, I think the struggle of the Palestinians for freedom really reflects the struggles of people all over the world for freedom. And of course, we're celebrating the Arab Spring as well. And the Arab Spring has a lot to do with Palestine. It's true that the issue of Palestine was not the issue that motivated the Egyptians and the Tunisians and the Yemenites and the Syrians and all the other peoples. But it's there very much in their consciousness. And you always, when you hear news reports and you hear this people speaking, Palestine comes up all the time. In other words, it's the idea that this is, in a sense, as was said tonight, we're all Palestinians. And I think, in a way, Palestine inspires that kind of uprising and the yearning for freedom and the yearning for a better world throughout the Arab world and well beyond the Arab and Muslim worlds as well. So I think that's one reason to celebrate, and that is that the Palestinians are not alone. But the Palestinians not only have the support of peoples all over the world, but the Palestinians are in fact inspiring, almost leading movements of freedom all over the world, whether they know it or not. The second reason, I think, for celebrating, although Ali might not agree with me, Ali doesn't agree with me, but we do so in a collegial way, is that I really do believe that politically we're getting towards the end of this conflict. I think that it's clear more and more to the governments of the world, and certainly to the peoples, that the Israeli occupation is absolutely unsustainable. It's not only immoral, it's not only a violation of human rights and international law and all of that, it's unsustainable. It's so disruptive of the international system. It's so in your face, in a sense, that I think there's less and less tolerance in the world towards this continued occupation. And I really believe that in September, when the UN convenes in September, this is going to be a game-changing time. Because either the Palestinian Authority will go to the United Nations and ask the United Nations to accept the state of Palestine within the 67 borders, the two-state solution, as a Palestinian state that would be a full member of the UN, and that would certainly be a game changer if that in fact happened. Now, one thing I have to, you know this, but I want to emphasize it, is that for the Palestinians, of course, a two-state solution is not the end. For Israel would like a two-state solution, whatever that means, to be the end of the conflict. The Palestinians get stuck in that. Palestinians, I think, have always said, the position has always been that a two-state solution is a stage towards the evolution of one state in all of Palestine, an inclusive peace in all of Palestine. So I don't think we have to get caught on this idea that if a two-state solution in the 67 borders is accepted by the international community in September, that now we're stuck with the two-state solution. What about the rest of Palestine? Or, it's not the end. And I think the Palestinians have to be upfront about that and say to the international community, we see this as a stage towards the eventual emergence of a united Palestine. So if that happens, that's a pretty big step. It probably won't happen because of an American veto. And that's really the problem and I'm sure you're feeling, many of you here are feeling very torn between Palestine and the United States. And the fact that the United States is on the wrong side of this conflict, like it's been on the wrong side in the Muslim and Arab worlds in general for the last generation or two. And the United States has become a real issue here. It will probably, almost definitely veto any kind of a Palestinian state. Now, if that happens, and either it goes to a vote and there's a veto, or for whatever reason Abu Mazen is pressed and he never brings this to a vote in September, I think in the end the Palestinian Authority will collapse. It'll either collapse or resign, in which case the entire occupation is thrown back onto the lap of Israel. Israel might even have to reoccupy the Palestinian cities, Gaza, and I think just the threat of that happening would so inflame the Muslim world, but well beyond the Muslim world, civil society, governments all over the world, that it would not be allowed to happen. In other words, I think that we're at the culmination of the political life, the process we've known for the last 20 years. We're past negotiations, and that's good news. These negotiations that have been fruitless, that have led the Palestinians into dead ends, that have only allowed Israel to strengthen the occupation, it's finally over. I don't care what Hillary Clinton says. Every time the Americans talk about, let's have a new push in negotiations, President Obama is going to make a new speech in a week or two laying out his Middle East policy. It's hollow. It falls on deaf ears. You cannot revive anymore any negotiating process that means anything. And I think that's good news, because now things are more clear. And either the Palestinians will go and get their state in September, or I think they'll leave the scene, the occupation will get thrown in the back of Israel, and that will force the international community to intervene. So I really do think, however it goes, September is going to be a turning point. And I think we should take courage in that, because it will only be a turning point in the end towards the just resolution of this conflict. So I think we have to redouble our efforts to support the Palestinian struggle. And in fact, what I've been trying to say to the Palestinian Authority people that I know is that you even have to mobilize us. You have to move. You have to use us. You know, you have to stop this pattern of Abu Mazen and three negotiators going into closed rooms with Obama and Blair and negotiating whatever and coming out with nothing. We, not only the Palestinians here, but civil society all over the world, we are the Palestinians' main allies. And if the Palestinian, whether it's the leadership, the political leadership, or Palestinian civil society, mobilizes us, uses us more, then I think it tremendously strengthens their hand in terms of any kind of a political process. So I think we're at the edge of a really momentous time, and I really do believe that this conflict is about to change. The rules are going to change, and I think we're on the road towards a just resolution and truly towards a Palestinian liberation. September's not going to end it. There's a lot of work to do, but I really do think we're reaching into a new phase. So I really do think politically, as well as for all the other reasons, tonight is a night to celebrate, and I thank you for inviting me.